What is up, guys? Rogue TCG. This is going to be a duel replay overview. So in this duel, this is going to be Mutant versus Drytron. I was in Plat 2 at the time, and I believe my opponent was somewhere in Plat. So we start with the hand. We have one brick, which is the Arsenal. We have Prosperity to find anything we want, and we have two pieces, one piece of Interaction, and then ST46 that will get us another piece of Interaction. I don't know what my opponent's playing at the moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Prosperity to see if I get an Ash. I don't, so that means I'm most likely safe to ST46 unless they have an Imperm or something. So I banish 6 for Pros to try and find a Floodgate of some sort. Lab, which is nothing, Beast, which is a brick, Skill Drain, which is a floodgate, another floodgate, one of those, and then a macro. I picked macro because it's the best against the most variety of things. So that includes every graveyard deck, which is almost all of them. Eldritch, because Skill Drain is really bad against Eldritch, and it's really good against Draco as well. So I pick up the macro. A normal ST46, hopefully I'm thinking this resolves, so I can get the spell, the trap that fusions on my opponent's turn for a Trident, because I can banish the Arsenal and then get a spell negate and a Trident. But my opponent reveals Orange Light, pitching Perfection, which means that the macro I picked was a good idea because Skill Drain wouldn't do too much in this matchup. But it also means it removes the 46 from field, which is kind of annoying. So I just set 3 and pass. So I do have access to my mutants at this moment because of expansion, and I can get the M7, or not the M7, the monster one, to get me back into the spell trap one. I have an Imperm for negation, and I have a macro Cosmos to stop stuff. It is a shame though that I didn't toggle on, and I missed my priority in the standby. So I had a macro on the Alpha effect after they pitched Ben 10. And I chain expansion, given that they weren't given a window to Ash when I activated macro, just to get it out of the way. So expansion is going to get the monster one. Macro is going to stop them from doing any more plays. And then on a new chain, it's going to be Ben 10 and then M05. M05 is, of course, going to get us ST46. And their Ben 10 is going to be getting them Diviner. I do make a misplay, not here, but after they summon off of that. I do decide to negate the Diviner, neglecting that macro's up. So, Diviner wouldn't have actually done anything. But, yeah. That's just a misplay on my own part. I could have gotten a little bit more value out of it, but it didn't really matter in the long run, to be honest. So they make the Lyrilisk not Link Monster, the Xyz. They attack for 800, and of course they're going to make Doubted and then Zeus. This is fine because I have ST46, which gets me the Arsenal that gets rid of Zeus by itself, which will mean if they Zeus, I can banish the Zeus. And they need a Zeus now to get rid of the macro. They made a good play by detaching the Xyz and leaving the Drytron, so they have access to Drytrons. But at the moment, they only have access to Zeta and Alpha. So, right now they are in a little bit of a predicament where they only have access to 2 Drytron names. I draw Prosperity off the top, which is really good. I decide to hold it until I get the Zeus negate out. I get an expansion for a free banish to get Arsenal. They Zeus, and then we Arsenal, banishing the Arsenal for not for cost, but for the effect, to banish the Zeus. So we get that off the field, and now we're going to Pros for 6. We leave 3 cards in extra. We leave 2 Synthesis and the Ultimus, so we have access to both Synthesis and the Ultimus later on. Everything else in our extra is just generic Links and Xyz. So we're not really going to use those in this matchup. It's more of a control matchup. So it reveals a couple cards. I believe I take Cry at this juncture. There is an argument for taking macro, but I want Cry to recycle my materials, and if it gets popped, to be able to grab expansion back, so I can get access to the mutant line, the mini mutants again. I just set the Cry and pass. My opponent activates Prep, but they don't have a spell in the grave, so they don't get maximum value. So they alpha pitch Ben 10, adding Draconids. And now they Ben 10, adding Diviner. And here is where, after they activate Zeta, they make a critical misplay. So, and then they activate the second Ben 10, and on that I chain Cry, since they've activated all Drytron effects, and I don't want them to make the XEs. So I'm going to pop one of the Drytrons by shuffling these two back, making Synthesis, and then that they're going to add Orange Light, which I predicted, and Synthesis is going to target a Drytron. They're going to Orange Light because they haven't read Synthesis, and then I'm going to Synthesis to make it unaffected by monster effects, given that was the last thing that activated by my opponent's side of the field. So they went -2 for nothing, also wasting the card that would have won them the game, the Diviner, because they didn't want their Drytron to be popped, which meant they couldn't really get back in the game. Now they're going to Perfection, bringing out, Perfection. But I know, I have full hand knowledge, I know this one card in hand is Draconids, so I'm not afraid of this at all. So I can just play it a little bit slow. Also, given that they went through 2 Orange Lights and all 3 Ben 10s, the only other fairy they should have in deck are going to be Avas and one single Diviner. So at most, that's 5 cards out of 25, so it's a 1/5 chance of them drawing it. So I'm not really going to be afraid. Summon Limb is the perfect card here, meaning they can't really get their plays off the ground, and my deck can play very well under Summon Limit. They open Drytron Fafnir, which is really good for us because they pick up the Nova, and it's also not a fairy. They're going to Nova, and then once they activate Alpha in Graveyard, I'm going to flip up the Summon Limit, because that means when Alpha resolves, that'll be their second summon of the turn. So now they're locked out of summons, and they add, what was that? I think that was Natasha? I don't know. Whatever. But that means they do have 1 negate, because that is a fairy. So I'm either going to try and debate that out or wait it out. I do pull a Cry, but that's useless because all mutants in rotation are waters, and Synthesis needs 2 different attributes. And all the mini mutants are also water, as well as Synthesis, and it can't use from hand. So I just set it as a bluff and pass. So my opponent's still not drawing anything, and the summon limits, since it's already resolved, they can't use ultimate-ness on it. So they're just going to summon 2 and pass. So the last thing I want them to do is make an XEs, and macro is the perfect pull here. So I can start locking them out of the game by banishing their Drytrons and cutting them off of their resources. So they have 1 fairy in hand at minimum. So they're going to activate that. I'm going to Synthesis, and then I'm going to macro Cosmos, chain to Synthesis. For some reason he decides not to Herald here, I don't know why, but it is what it is. So he gammas away his own Alpha under Summon Limit, which is a little bit confusing. We pull an ST46, we normal summon, get an expansion so we can get the ball rolling, activate the effect, banishing that to get a beast to negate spells and traps. That's our 2 summons for the turn. We're going to get rid of that permanently, and then we're going to just set that and pass. So now there's not really a feasible way that he can get back in the game. We have access to Synthesis, we have access to that, and he sees the writing on the wall and he concedes. I think Mutant's a really interesting control deck in Master Duel, and given the new Mutant card, I think it might see some rogue play, like fringe play in TCG. I'm going to do a little bit more research into it. And if you guys want to see a deck list, let me know in the comments, and I will make a deck list given this. I'll make one for both an Extrav board and a Prosperity board. But thank you guys so much for watching. This video is a little bit long for like a recap video, but have a nice day.